Moore. Here. Peck. Here. And Santos.
Here.
Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
Okay, let's stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to have his or her name on the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call, public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing items this evening or at final call, public invited to be heard on any item at the end of the meeting. So now we have the December 15th regular session minutes to approve. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move passage of the minutes of the December 15th regular session.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. And that passes 7-0. Okay, Valerie, are there any agenda revisions?
No, Mayor Coombs, there are not.
All right. Is there a report from the city manager?
No report, Mayor and Council.
All right. I think we have a proclamation, Martin Luther King, and I will go ahead and read the proclamation. Proclamation designating the week of January 18th through the 22nd, 2016, as honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week in Longmont, Colorado, whereas January 18th, 2016 is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, on which we honor the civil rights work of Dr. King and countless supporters who sacrificed to sow the seeds for the movement of peace, equality, and justice for all. And whereas across the nation, throughout the state, and in the city of Longmont, honoring Dr. King has become a day of service to our communities, the honoring event held in Longmont is an example of service and is made possible by many volunteers from diverse backgrounds, and the need to take action to continue to values of courage, truth, compassion, dignity, humility, and service. And whereas the All Cultures, One Voice honoring MLK through action event on January 18th will be an opportunity for us all to come together to learn the legacy of Dr. King and to take part in a call to action which seeks to engage individuals in taking actions to build caring and inclusive community. This event is presented in partnership with the students of the Silver Creek Leadership Academy, the Dr. King Committee, and the Multicultural Action Committee. Now, therefore, I, Dennis L. Coombs, Mayor, by the virtue of authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim the week of January 18th through the 22nd, 2016, as honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week in Longmont, and invite all to attend the events honoring Dr. King. I don't know if there's, I guess Stella Woodley is here to accept the proclamation.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I got to go to putting first in.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening, rather. Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Thank you, Longmont City Council. Thank you to the Multicultural Action Committee. Thank you to the Dr. King Committee. I do accept this proclamation on behalf of all of the unsung Dr. Martin Luther Kings that are out here. I accept this proclamation on behalf of my family. While there is much work to be done, there is equally much work to be done. While there has been much work done, there is equally much work to be done. A couple of years ago, I challenged each of us to be like Dr. Martin Luther King with his commitment. And I again hold that same challenge to each of us to live with the commitment that he did to humankind. We look forward to seeing everybody next week. Try to get to some event, and let's not just act like Dr. King one day out of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella.
Good job. Nailed it, Mayor. Nailed it.
Okay, so we have first call public invited to be heard, Giorgio Johnston.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Giorgio Johnston. I live at 619 Kimbark Street. My landlord is selling the duplex, and he called now in January here and said he wants us out at the last of January. We've been checking with all kinds of different ones on housing, and so far we haven't found anything. We have a bunch of stuff in storage, and it's 164. They've added, put it up from 110. And our grandchildren are unhappy because they can't come and stay with us because we're in such a ordeal. We have money to pay, but my husband is retired from the post office on disability and Social Security. He had health problems and had to quit. But he was a volunteer for the city for 30 years in the police department, the housing board, the senior board, and other community things, the hospital, all kinds of ways. I'm here to say that there has to be a caring landlords and people that want to be a blessing and helping others. There has to be somewhere. I feel Longmont is a beautiful city, and you, the mayor and city council, with the resources of the city and the government, should be working on helping. There's some way. We've been doing this since May. We ought to be going somewhere. We are the people. We, the people, are special and important and shouldn't be homeless. And this is getting very interesting and very troubling. We've supported Longmont all these years. What would you do if this was happening to you? It's like a nightmare. It's very interesting because we've always been caring people, and it's embarrassing. But yet, you have to stand strong. There has to be a way. My husband didn't come tonight because he had dialysis today, and he wasn't feeling good. You, the mayor, and the city council were elected because you wanted to help the city and to care about its people. So I feel you should be coming up with help and a need for helping us with a home. We've been coming since May. I'm sure that there are people who want to help with affordable housing. Because I talked to Susan, and she come across a couple people that she said was trying to work and see. And I'm sure that, and then I want to thank you for letting me come and listening to me. But there's got to be a reason. There's got to be help for helping us. And I know there's lots of other people because I was standing in line today with another lady, and she was really struggling. She actually got removed out of hers, and they upped the rent. So thank you very much. Lord bless you, and there's got to be an answer.
Thank you. Roy Lewis.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs and City Council members. My name is Roy Lewis, and I live at 904 Grant Street here in Longmont. Okay, I lived here in Longmont for over 30 years. But yeah, as of March 6th of 2015 of this past year, I was involved in an auto pedestrian accident, and I was the victim that got hit. And it happened on 5th and Main Street in the crosswalks. The crosswalks in the middle of the blocks. And I know on 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Main, there's the crosswalks in the middle of the blocks. And anyway, the driver of the person that hit me wasn't really paying attention, even though the signs were visibly clear to be seen. And I was badly injured with a broken leg and a few other minor injuries. And I'd like to see some changes made with the signs to avoid this happening again, or even to see a kid get hit by this. And see about possibly getting some flashing lights installed at those crosswalks that are in the middle of the blocks. The ones on 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Main. So that's my suggestion. I'd like to possibly see it get done. Because I know Boulder, because I've seen some signs like that over in Boulder. So, especially on Canyon Boulevard, I'd like to see possibly some of those being solved here on the ones 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Main. So, I thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Representative Mike Foote.
Well, good evening, everybody. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about affordable housing. That's something that's of concern to all of you all, of course. It is to my constituents. I represent House District 12, which includes southern and eastern Longmont. I hear from folks all the time about affordable housing. It's very much a concern of mine, and have dealt with it at the legislature over the last 3 years on various committees, hearing tax credits, hearing the construction defects law from last year, and so forth. And I came in rather late for your study session, so I didn't hear everything that was said. I came in right before the Mayor Pro Tem talked about the ideological divide and trying to find a solution, and I think that's very much right on. That was an approach that I took last year because I knew that the construction defects bill was going to come to one of my committees in the House. In fact, it did come to one of my committees. And over the course of time, I was lobbied by both sides, and I was trying to get to the bottom of it and trying to figure out what is the right way to go about this, because we all know it's a problem. We all know it's an issue. Is this the right focus? Should we be focusing on construction defects, or should we be going a different direction? And so the way I came to my decision is I asked, I think, kind of a simple question to the proponents of the bill, which was, show me the causation between construction defects law that we have right now and the shortage of our affordable housing. It was actually a bigger picture at the time. It was more of a shortage of condos, which then leads, of course, to the affordable housing as well. Show me the causation. That's what I was asking folks that came forward with the bill. And if there is causation, we should do something about it. Show me other states and their laws and whether or not they're dealing with affordable housing in the same way or a different way, or if they have affordable housing issues. Take a look at the other states. Take a look at our laws and how they've evolved over the last 20 or 30 years and how that has corresponded or not with our shortage of housing, particularly affordable housing. And I could not get a good answer from the proponents last year. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because as you deliberate, I hope you'll ask the same types of questions. Ask critical questions, ask them about the causation, and whether or not it does lead to our shortage of affordable housing. We have a shortage of affordable housing. There's no doubt about that. What frustrated me was the focus on the construction defects in that particular bill. The media latched onto that bill, of course, as being a very controversial bill, and it was. And I just hope that you'll take the approach of making people explain the data, making people explain the causation if there is any, and then making your decision based on that. That's what I did, and I think that a lot of other people do that, and based on the conversation I'm hearing, I think that's what you guys want to do as well. Try to find an issue or try to find a way to solve the issue and try to find that information. So thank you very much, and I've run out of time.
Thank you. Gordon Pedro.
Gordon Pedro, 2639 Falcon Drive, Longmont. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity. The pre-session tonight had a strange flavor. On one side, you heard from a high-priced lobbyist and attorney representing the Home Builders Association. And on the other side, you heard from a manager of an HOA and the attorneys representing HOAs. But no homeowners who have been harmed by lousy construction were invited to the table. So this seems like a strange opportunity to get real information. Everyone claims to want affordable housing. The lobbyist wants affordable housing. Council members want affordable housing. The legislators want affordable housing. Your residents want affordable housing. But I asked the city council members how you would be addressing affordable housing needs by siding with the home builders and developers at the expense of your residents who will be homeowners. To help home builders force your residents into arbitration would be unfair and wrong. I encourage you to read a recent series of articles in the New York Times regarding how this forcing consumers of all sorts into arbitration as opposed to being able to use a legal system to get redress for their many grievances and unjust actions on the part of businesses and industry, to really get a flavor of what you will be doing if you go along with this idea that it's all right to force your residents, your future homeowners, into arbitration as opposed to other remedies. And I'm not sure that I heard that there were two sides tonight. I did hear two sides. I think there's at least one other side that you really need to hear from before you move forward, and that's homeowners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That ends public invited to be heard. So do you want to introduce the first item?
Mayor Coombs, your first item on public hearing and second reading is the Bowes annexation. You have two items, and you can have one public hearing on these. The first item is Resolution 2016-01. It's a public hearing regarding a resolution finding a parcel of land known as the Bowes annexation, generally located south of Nelson Road and east of Airport Road, eligible for annexation. The second item under this is Ordinance 2016-01, conditionally approving the Bowes annexation and zoning the property PUDR, Planned Unit Development. And Ava Pachevsky will make a short presentation on this.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs and council members. Ava Pachevsky, Planning and Development Services. So again, this is the Bowes annexation. I'm going to try and, no, I'm supposed to swipe. What's going on, Harold? I'm supposed to swipe it, right? Okay. Technical difficulties. Okay. Okay, so let's start with location. I'm going to use my mouse now, right? Okay, well, let's look at the red star there, and that would be, thank you. Technical difficulties. Here we go. So with the red star here, here's the property location, and their address is 8775 Craig Road. That road is down here. It's a Boulder County road, and it comes off of Schlegel Street here on the east. This property is, as you can see, it is south of what we call the Park Meadows annexation property here, which is just south of Nelson Road, and that's an arterial street. The property is in Boulder County currently, and it's designated as agricultural zoning. On the Longmont Area Comprehensive Plan, we designate this property on our comp plan as low-density residential. The adjacent neighborhoods, this is the Meadowview subdivision right here. These are condominium townhomes, sorry. On the east is the Schlegel residential subdivision, and that's in Boulder County. And then down here is the Westbrook Village subdivision. And then there's like 2 acres of Boulder County land south of the Bowes property. That's just to sort of orient you. In reviewing the annexation petition, this property does meet the 1/6 contiguity with City of Longmont limits, which is required by state statute. So this is the applicant's concept plan. The person who is interested in buying the property from the Bowes, this is, I'm trying to orient you here, this red line. This is Nelson Road over here. This is the north. This is the Park Meadows property that's already in the City of Longmont. It's already zoned residential, PUDR, which allows 6 dwelling units per acre. And then this here on the south, this is all the Bowes property. What they're proposing in their concept plan is to combine the person that's going to buy the Baus property is also purchasing the Park Meadows property and would develop it together. So I just want to put that into context for you what this is. The ultimate goal is to plat off this piece here. I think it's about an acre or so, and the Baus family will continue to live in their house that's down here on the southeast corner. And they will continue to access their property here from Craig Road, but only them. The way the concept plan is laid out, primary access comes from Nelson Road here into this subdivision, and it comes in, and then over here, I'm trying to think of this, there's a side street here, Oakwood Drive, and this is from the Meadowview subdivision. Right now, they have a stub out right here, sorry, over here, and so we would just continue Oakwood and keep it going, and so it kind of has 2 points of access that the fire department needs. At the moment, they're showing, looks like single-family lots, and Joel Siemens from Park Engineering is here to give you more information about what they're planning to do. But the maximum density in this land use is 6 dwelling units per acre, and they plan to stay with it. So I'm just going to go over the review criteria. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this. They all unanimously recommended approval. Again, this is consistent with the comp plan. Its designation is low density, and they're proposing low density. There's adequate capacity available in the streets, according to our Public Works Department. The land uses, which is residential, is consistent with the zoning. They're proposing a PUDR zoning, which is the same as the Park Meadows property. We did not identify any adverse impacts to the environment, neighbors, or city facilities. The concept plan has an appropriate transportation plan layout, complies with the Annexation Act. It's in our municipal services area in our comp plan. The zoning is appropriate as far as we can see, and it's consistent again with its designation. And it doesn't pose any development constraints on any adjacent parcels. So that's staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Joel Siemens is
Councilmember Christensen.
Eva, could we look back at the colored? Yes. All right. I was just wondering about the 2 exits. I missed it. Thank you.
Any other questions before I open up the public hearing? Okay, and I'll now open the public hearing on both the resolution R 2016-01 and ordinance O 2016-01. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to speak up on either the ordinance or the resolution at this time? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. So we'll have to vote on these separately. Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move Resolution 2016-01.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move Ordinance 2016-01.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Finley. Let's vote. And that passes 7-0.
Mayor Coombs, let me check your next item here. We have the building code, inspection code amendments, and you have 2 ordinances. First ordinance is 2016-02, a bill for an ordinance amending section 16.48.060 of the Longmont Municipal Code on renewal of building contractors' licenses. And the second ordinance is Ordinance 2016-03, a bill for an ordinance adding Chapter 16.28 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting by reference the 2015 edition of the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. And I believe you can have one public hearing on both of these together, but you will need to act on them separately.
Okay, is there any questions from council before I open this up for public hearing? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2016-02 and 2016-03. I don't see anybody signed up for it. So is there anybody from public that would like to speak on this ordinance? All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I was considering asking a question of Chris just to make him come up, since he's rarely comes to council. But I move ordinance 2016-02.
All right, let's vote on that. That passes 7-0.
Mayor Coombs.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move ordinance 2016-03.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. Someone still hasn't voted. All right, that passes 7-0.
Your next item is the consent agenda. Ordinance, 9A is ordinance 2016-04, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of a utility easement generally located south of Nelson Road and west of South Fordham Street. Public hearing and second reading for this item is scheduled for January 26th. Item 9B is ordinance 2016-05, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the City of Longmont to lease the real property known as Van Spram Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H30 to the Johnson Family Trust. Public hearing and second reading is scheduled for January 26th. Item 9C is Resolution 2016-02, adopting fee schedules for the International Building Code, International Residential Code, International Fuel Gas Code, International Mechanical Code, International Property Maintenance Code, International Plumbing Code, International Swimming Code, and Pool and Spa Code, Electrical Code, Building Contractors Licenses, and the Master Board of Appeals. Item 9D is Resolution 2016-03, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Colorado State University for its 4-H STEM out-of-school initiative. Item 9E is Resolution 2016-04, approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City and State of Colorado, Department of Local Affairs for CDBG DR funding on behalf of the Boulder County Collaborative. Item 9F is Resolution 2016-05, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City and the Colorado Department of Law, Peace Officer Standards and Training for grant funding for training equipment and tools for certified peace officers. Item 9G is Resolution 2016-06, approving the services contract between the City and Longmont Cable Trust. Item 9H is a change to Council's rules of procedure regarding the order of the regular session items. And item 9I is to designate the bulletin boards outside the council chambers and the west entrance of the Civic Center as the official City Council agenda posting locations. Staff does not have a need to pull any of these items.
Councilmember Santos.
Well, if no one has anything else to pull, I move.
How about if we...
Why don't you go ahead? I went off the mic.
I'd like to pull item H just so that we have a brief discussion about it.
Hey, do you want to turn your mic off now? Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, I believe we had a discussion on that, but I will move the consent agenda minus 9H.
All right, let's vote on the consent agenda minus 9H. Okay, that passes 7-0. So, Councilmember Christensen?
Okay, since could you mention why you wanted to make this change? You're the one, the mayor wanted to make this change.
Let's see. First one, really. Well, at the December 15th meeting, we discussed potential changes to the rules and procedures to move item 1, the consent agenda, and first reading by title of ordinance prior to item 1 ordinances on the second reading and public hearing on that matter. So we decided to basically to make the meetings run more efficiently, where we wouldn't have staff here that we don't have to answer questions. So we kind of wanted to switch the order so that then staff could wouldn't be required to stay here for I mean, that was the whole point, was to get staff home earlier. Do you want to explain, can you explain that better?
So I think part of it was, so the employee advisory group talked to us about this, and I believe it was Sandy that talked to you about this item as well. And part of it was in what the employee advisory group was seeing, and really these are only the consent items that aren't pulled. And so they requested that as those are that could be moved up a little bit ahead of the second readings, so that if we have second readings that start taking a long time as we're moving through the agenda, we can move through that consent process to free those individuals up. And so that's how the process came about.
Yeah, okay, I didn't realize that came up.
Your mic isn't on.
Sometimes that,
There.
You're not on.
oh, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor Combs. And that was what I thought what the council, we discussed at that December 15th meeting, was that it would allow those members of, if we get a packed second reading, or a long meeting, a long agenda, second reading items with multiple public hearings. I mean, tonight was a little bit, no one really came.
Yeah.
But there are times when we have had meetings in the past where we are at 10 o'clock and we haven't got to the consent agendas. If we can get those out of the way, free up those members of staff, they can go home. And those members of staff, when a council member pulls an item off, then we can have that discussion. It flows the meeting. There's still first call public invited to be heard prior to that. So if there's a member of the public who would like to speak upon or about a consent agenda item, they still have that opportunity at that meeting. And then again, if it should pass at a second reading.
And I think what I would add is that if an item is removed from the consent agenda, it doesn't go ahead of the items that are there for second reading where the public's there to speak on them. It'll fall to after the second reading of ordinances. So the only thing that really goes before that piece are those items that are passed on the consent agenda very quickly. I think that was one of the concerns that I talked to the staff about, the employee advisory group, as they were talking about this, is we also don't want to delay members of the public that are here to speak on a certain item. And so this just, so if council says, I want to pull item H like you did tonight, item H actually then falls below the second readings.
Okay, I didn't understand that tonight.
Go ahead, I'll jump in after you.
Councilmember Christensen?
Sorry, thank you. But I wanted us to have this discussion so that the public knew. So thank you.
Councilmember Bagley?
Thank you, Mayor Combs. The other thing is that, just an important note, we're not moving public invited to be heard. Right. So, yeah, but what I mean is the pieces of bread in our council sandwich remain at the beginning and the end of every meeting. And this is like we did tonight. It went pretty quick, the consent agenda. We literally just get it out of the way. Then we can get on, and if we have a hardcore second reading and we need to debate and argue, we don't have staff members or even members of the public who are there for other things who can just kind of go on their way. I think it's a great idea. However, if for some reason we change it and then meetings start going longer because, now we're like, hey, we got a lot of time to talk about this second reading stuff, I would suggest we might revisit this change. But I think it's okay for the meantime.
Councilmember Santos?
Well, and Councilmember Bagley, I would agree with that, but I'd also have remind members to constrain or have stay on point on topics. That way we can get through our discussions.
Great advice.
And I will tell you, as I had the conversations with the EAG representatives, one of the things that we were vocal about was the fact that it does not go ahead of public invited to be heard, because the public needs an opportunity to speak on those items that are in the consent agenda if they desire to. And so that's why public invited to be heard, consent agenda, if nothing's removed, second reading. If something was removed, then it goes after second reading and then into general business. And then public invited to be heard again.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move change to council rules of procedure regarding order of regular session agendas.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. And that passes 7-0. Wow. So we don't have any general business tonight, so now it's time for final call. Public invited to be heard. Is there anyone from the public like to speak?
David Slater.
You
get up, you get called.
So seeing no one, I'll close final call. Public invited to be heard. So now it's time for mayor and council comments. Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. I guess I had a thought after we were talking about that construction defect stuff that that I just wanted to share. That as an attorney, we're constantly trying. I think most attorneys in private practice, anyway, and I think these two gentlemen here were in that realm, that workspace. You're constantly looking at potential lawsuits as business opportunities. Seriously, if somebody comes in and they got ripped off $10,000 and they want to pay me a third, I'm thinking, okay, for $3,333.33, I can prosecute this case and earn that much. But if it's going to cost me $5,000 to prosecute, I'm going to look at them and I'm going to go, yeah, you know, it's really not worth suing. You know, it's really not worth my time. And they're kind of stuck. And I think that there's three categories of buildings in general. You've got apartment buildings. You know, Wendell Pickett was in the back of the room. Wendell built the Mill Village apartment buildings with his partners. And he's not going to sue himself because he built it and he owns all the apartments. So I'm sure the same level of construction defects going to happen all over the place, but you don't have the problem because the builders of apartments don't sue themselves. You've got homes that are built individually, and even though there's an HOA, they're not connected, they're independent. And if the builder screws up on my house, I'm going to go out and hire an attorney, and I'm going to have that interaction with my attorney where, you know what, there was only $10,000 in damage. Do I bring a lawsuit or do I just suck it up and pay the difference? And so the individual home owner is protected as well. The reason why, and this went back to Gordon Pedro's comment asking that this is what kind of got me thinking, the reason why construction defect, I believe, is a problem, because when you're dealing with multifamily condos, you're in a situation where all of a sudden you're batching all the potential problems together, and the attorney like me, who you're going, wait, yeah, the $3,333 doesn't make sense, but wait, if there's 100 of you, now all of a sudden we got something cooking. And so I don't think that there's any difference. So I don't think that there's any difference in necessarily the quality of construction or even necessarily a problem with the law, so to speak. The problem is where the law meets that economic, carrot for us attorneys.
The problem is the attorneys is what you're saying?
That's exactly right. You need to banish all attorneys. A fracking ban and an attorney ban in Longmont. No, and so I just think that if we talk about this, as we talk about this into the future, rather than just changing the law, we should, just keep that in mind that maybe that has something to do with it. So that was my only thought. Yeah. Literally, that was my only thought all night.
Councilmember Christensen.
I do want to thank all the people who came to testify today about this. I think it's a very complicated issue, construction defect and expansive soils, and it's a very, very complicated issue. And I think it's best dealt with on a statewide level. I agree with Representative Singer. But what I wanted to do is thank this week. Next Light came to my neighborhood, and it was really, really cold. Those guys were up on a 30-foot ladder, and they were like, oh my, I kept going out and saying, oh, it's so cold. But they did a great job.
You
and
haven't looked up in
no, they have a pre-install, and then they have an install, and then they have a sort of a second install. But anyway, they're starting it, and I was so heartened by the fact that they were all out there working really hard in the really, really cold. So I don't book anybody complaining about Next Light being slow. Thanks.
Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'm very jealous about your next life. Still waiting, still waiting. As are my neighbors, I might add. I found the construction defects presentations interesting, as well as our executive session very interesting. This is a concern of mine and has been for quite some time. The reason we should be concerned about enacting our own construction defects ordinance is that the state's legislature's inability to fix the problem is ever present. They haven't for 3 years. They're not going to this year. I think we should be above that on the local level. We should be above partisan politics because we're the ones that really have to feel the affordable housing problem here locally. In a recent study by the Denver Regional Council of Governments, it concluded that the most significant impact on the construction of for-sale attached products has come from the costs related to the construction defects litigation. It notes that most developers believe that the probability of being sued for construction defects in Colorado for this type of product is 100%. Dr. Cog also states that construction insurance costs have grown significantly. In its market study, Dr. Cog estimated that because of additional costs related to construction defects, developers need to pay approximately $15,000 more per unit for a condo project than an apartment building, reducing the profitability for such projects and making more affordable condos a less viable option. The goal of any ordinance we would propose should be to reduce the cost and or need of litigation associated with construction defects in residential housing. And I believe we can do that by giving the builder the right to repair any defect prior to filing a lawsuit, having the homeowners associations obtain consent from the majority of homeowners in order to file a lawsuit, and by giving the builder the option of offering a monetary settlement in lieu of pursuing repairs if that's not going to work between the two parties. In the legal opinion of the Aurora City Attorney, as a home rule city municipality created pursuant to the authority granted by Article 20 of the Colorado Constitution, the city has broad authority to exercise its police powers to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of its residents. The adaptation, implementation, and enforcement of land use and zoning regulations and building codes are well established as matters of local concern for home rule municipalities to address. We've used this in our defense of our fracking ordinance as well. I find it interesting that some of the partisan bickering is over arbitration. We don't want to leave out the lawyers, the trial lawyers. I'm not proposing that. I think lawyers should be able to make a living. You know, Bagley needs to feed his family.
Thank you.
If we fail to address this largest impediment to affordable home ownership, we are doing a great disservice to our community, and we will be just as partisan, just as ineffective as the state and federal level of government. And I'm not really willing to do that, personally. We can wait for another legislative session to pass where they don't do anything. And if that is the will of the council, I'm okay with that. They will not do anything. And I would therefore move that we instruct staff to bring forth an ordinance that would address this issue. Now, they can bring forth this ordinance in March so that by the time we would pass it, the legislature will have, in 120 days, already have ended and not done anything, and then everyone would be comfortable with that, I think. Or we can just instruct staff to bring forth the ordinance after the legislature is over in May. I think we should get started on it right away. I know Loveland is doing it, Fort Collins is doing it. I don't see why we should be left in the dust, leaving our people in the dust. Now, the other cities, another argument, other cities that have passed it haven't seen an influx of condos being built. This will take a very long time for insurance rates to go down, for lenders to feel comfortable with local ordinances. But if we don't get started, we won't get to the finish line, and I think we need to start. So therefore, I would move that we instruct staff to bring forth an ordinance that would address this issue, and I would be willing to accept an amendment stating that we could do it in a month or two.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. Okay, yeah. All right. I agree with a lot that you said. I just want to make sure that we all have input to legal as to what we want in this ordinance. That I think that there's things in some of the others that are very good, but I think we can improve on. I think we can do a better job that might actually offer some better protection to the consumer and get what we want. And I totally agree that even if the state passed construction defects law right now, nobody's going to be building condos for a long time because, number one, if you're a developer, and right now you can build an apartment building and pre-rent those apartments for $2,000 a piece with no risk, why would you build condos? So in order to incentivize condos, first you got to get past lowering the insurance rate. You've got this market, this apartment market to cool off so that other things, so a lot of things have to happen because it's not going to happen overnight. It might not, we might not start building condos, you know, at the 10% level for a decade. But I
Can you amend the motion to say, to bring it back to council for more discussion?
yeah, that's kind of what I would like to have, is not for us to just go off and draft it, but to draft something and then we kind of discuss it and you know, work towards you know, something that we think is going to be good. But I also agree we'll just work it in parallel, and maybe the legislator would solve it and we might just be able to scrap it. So.
Yes.
Amended to have staff work on it and bring it back for more discussion.
Yeah.
Is generally what was
right
amended before we go to an ordinance.
Before we go to
first reading.
Right.
So more discussion.
More discussion before first reading.
Got it.
Yeah. City manager.
So the way I interpret that would be that we would essentially create a menu, say.
Yeah.
And then the menu, you all would have time to, if council were to pass this, that we would bring a menu back, and then you all would look at the menu of options and then provide additional direction for us as we move forward.
Right.
Like when we do with affordable housing.
Yeah. Right. Okay, we've got a motion. It's been.
We have discussion.
Okay. Okay. Councilmember Peck.
I am frustrated. The construction defect laws have always been discussed in conjunction with affordable housing. And since I was new to this discussion, I decided to do some research on by myself. I was told that part of the reason that condos weren't being built and affordable housing was not being built was because of the construction defect laws, and banks would not lend because of that. So I've contacted some local banks and a regional bank and asked them if they lent for condos or for if they had any preference for what they lent to developers or construction. And the answer is no, they could care less. Banks are in the business of making money, period. Everybody's in the business of making money, period. So I also asked them if HUD had anything to do with their lending practices, and they said no. I asked them if there were different, now these are local banks, and they also said that the interest rates for condos versus apartment buildings had nothing to do with it. They don't have different interest rates because the interest rates are computed on all kinds of things that come into that. So I just want to negate the fact that we don't have affordable housing in Longmont because local banks won't lend for affordable housing. Banks also have something that you probably already know about, but I had to learn about it, which is the Community Reinvestment Act. And that act basically gives credit to banks that lend and work within their community. And those banks that have CRA ratings lend to affordable housing developers. There's also, and I think this is what Jonathan Singer was alluding to, the state federal low-income housing tax credit program, which does nothing but work with affordable housing developers in, I already have that, thank you, within the city, within their communities. And they have given over $2 billion to affordable housing developers. And that has nothing to do with construction defect laws. So I just want to be really careful that those laws are not a smokescreen to negate affordable housing. The other thing is that, and I brought this up, that the HOAs, from my perspective, are a real problem with the construction defect laws. According to a Wall Street Journal article, the condo sales are low because millenniums would rather rent. They do not like the idea that they give away or sign their rights away to an HOA, and that if there is a problem with a certain owner in the HOA, they all have liens on their condos. Those are generally starter homes. They want to sell them. They want to use their equity to move on, and they find they have a lien on it. And the other problem is with condos, especially large condos, an investor will come in and buy all of them or a large amount of them and use them as rentals. Therefore, when you're using owner majority vote of owners, it's not necessarily the majority vote of the units. So if an owner has a problem with one of their units, then the owner has the majority vote in that HOA. And the other issue is that apartment buildings for developers are a nest egg in a sense, that they can rent those for a while and then convert them to condos, getting on the front and the back end sales. So I just want to be careful when we jump into this that we're not using the construction defect laws as the whole reason that we don't have affordable housing. There are a lot of carrots out there for affordable housing, and we should pursue that on a different path than the construction defect laws. Thank you.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, we can sit here and debate this topic or have staff bring us back information and have those debates at that time. I'm not willing to get into the nitty-gritty of this person may be bad, this person's good, or this bill is terrible, that attorney's money-grabbing attorney, whatever. Okay. I'm not willing to have that discussion tonight because as I hope all members of council are trying to keep an open mind. So, again, we can continue. It's only 8:10. We can go on to 11 o'clock and discuss construction defects legislation, or we can have staff bring us back that information, and then that way we can make a better, we can educate ourselves somewhat more, and then also have staff ask questions, some prior to getting to the meeting if you have your own specific general questions. And I understand those specific general questions can be used for public, for education of the public, but minute questions that just for your own edification, I would encourage members of council to talk to members of staff. But again, we can continue to have this discussion continuing on. I got time to kill.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, we do have a motion and a second on an amended
proposal here, so I think we do need to have some discussion on this before we take a vote. The fact of the matter is, Longmont itself is ahead of the game on affordable product. I mean, I'm talking affordable for lower income and not just affordable housing for people that are in the workforce. There's 120 senior units going in on the north side of Longmont. And the Chrisman Apartments is a public-private partnership with Longmont Housing Authority for another 150 or so. And the council has set aside $500,000 in the budget to help promote more of this type of housing. So I would like to not forget that fact that we're actually doing something here in Longmont that's not being done in other parts of the region. I do find the arguments compelling on both sides. Representative Singer asking us to wait makes some sense. Representative Foote saying he wants to see the data. I like that position a lot. I don't have enough empirical information yet to really make an informed decision, and I think that that's what we're asking to do with this motion. So that's my 2 cents worth in 30 seconds.
Councilmember Christensen.
That's pretty succinct. Yeah, I thought we were all going home, but then this was brought up again. So I agree with Representative Singer that we should wait on this. This is really a national issue. It's a national and a statewide issue. I don't see why we would do this. I think that staff has already spent a great deal of time giving us information about this. Director Joni Marsh and Assistant City Manager Sean Lewis did an excellent presentation giving us all sorts of information about this and interviewing people, and it seemed like that was fairly clear that there was no particular evidence that there was any tie between Colorado construction defect law and lack of affordable housing. And I would hate to, and I believe that City Attorney Eugene May did a very good job of informing us more tonight. I hate to see city staff waste a lot more time on this. If you look into this issue, you see that actually there are fewer condos being built because there's a tight credit market. We have had 40 years of stagnant incomes. We have lower marriage rates. We have more single people. We have higher college debt. There are a lot of people still climbing out of 7 years of bankruptcy from foreclosures who are not able to buy anything. Added to the pressure of having 100,000 new people coming into Colorado this year, that makes us a little short. And the truth is that this market for low-end condos has changed, as Councilwoman Peck pointed out. There's a real low-end return on a low return on low-end condos and townhouses, and it is easier and more profitable for people to build apartments and then convert them. And, you know, they're not in the business of charity. They're in the business of making money. There's nothing wrong with that. And so if the whole thing has sort of changed, we need to understand that the time perhaps has changed for that, for building low-end condos and using that as a solution. In terms of arbitration, 9 out of the largest builders in the United States require forced binding arbitration. So this is the trend for people can't even sue anymore if they're forced into binding arbitration before they can. If they want a house, that's what they have to accept, or if they want a condo. So, you know, there are a lot of problems. This is a very complicated issue, and I frankly think we should. We've been advised by Representative Foote that he couldn't find any tie between lack of affordable housing and construction defect law. We've been advised by Representative Singer to wait. I'm on board with that. So I would not move that I can't support this for us to spend any more time on this. Thank you.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. Hey, man, we got 3 hours. No. I guess I would like more information as well, so I'm going to support it. However, what I would like, and I'm only one of 7, but something to keep in mind that I think would be the solution anything we could do legally, regardless of whether it's permitted or not, sending a message, whatever, anything we could do, I think the key, at the state level as well as the local level, if we can find a way to make it enforceable, is you say HOAs are allowed to sue on common area and maintenance areas, and that individual condo owners have to sue on their own. You basically put the condos in the same position as the apartment building owners and the single-family homes, and then the causality is no longer an issue, the fairness is no longer an issue, and the condo owners are in the same boat as everybody else, and the concern of, you know, we have to protect the homeowners is still in place. If there's a way we can do that, I didn't really see it in the other ordinances written by other towns, and if I were you, Mr. May, hearing this conversation, I would literally be, you know, taking a pencil and sharpening it, ready to jab it into my eye as a result of this road. You know, is it going to be Dan? Oh, yeah, Jeff. Jeff? Yeah, Jeff. He's got the pencil. And so, I mean, I think that would be the solution. Literally just say you can't sue on behalf of another condo owner, and HOAs only have the ability or power to sue for common areas. And if that were the issue, now you're in a position where everybody else is, literally a position where everybody else is. So that was just my thought. I don't know if it's possible. Like I said, I don't think that we have the authority. I think we'd be overreaching. But nevertheless, if we can figure out a way to make that happen, I'd be curious to see that on the menu. And ice cream.
Well, I never thought that there was a really strong nexus between building condos and affordable housing anyway. I mean, it might be a small, and that's not the reason why we, you know, in my mind, we want to address this, you know, but we want to fix this problem where, you know, perhaps someone that wants to sell his condo, it's all locked up in litigation, and, you know, right now people say, well, we want to protect the homeowner or the condo owner, and that's great. I mean, I totally agree with that because I've been a condo owner and I've had construction defects. I mean, I just got out of one, and so I know what it's like from that point of view. But, you know, the other side of it is if we do nothing, then how are we protecting the condo owners right now because nobody's building condos, nobody's buying them, so we're not protecting, you know, we're protecting zero by doing nothing. So I don't think doing nothing is the answer, but I think collectively we're a bunch of really smart people, and we might be able to work on this and come up with something that's better than all the other 12 cities have done. And even if we just work on it and we end up scrapping it because they solve it down at the legislature, that's a good thing because I think we need to send a message that, you know, we're not going to wait for people to time and time again not get anything done and not do anything about it. I think we need to be proactive and work together collectively to find out something that's better. I mean, there's not going to be perfect, but I think we can do better than doing nothing, and that's why I'm going to support this.
Vote on this bad boy.
Yeah.
Councilmember
Finley.
I just had one quick thing. It's not about affordable housing, Jeff. It's about affordable home ownership. There's a difference. And we are making great strides in affordable housing, but affordable home ownership is another story.
And Councilmember Peck?
I was just curious, would it be just as effective, instead of having an ordinance, to actually support our legislators with a list, a menu of what we would like their legislature to address?
Possibly. I think that should be on the menu.
Because Councilman Finley says that it is absolutely not going to be passed, but if they had backing from a council, a city, that supported their legislature.
Yeah, we did.
Well, we try again.
We should put that on the menu.
Yeah, we'll put that on the menu.
You.
That's one of the options.
Thank you.
I agree. Okay, we've got a, still want a word to add? Councilmember Christensen?
I would just like to point out that since 1986, Colorado construction defect law has been changed 11 times. and in each case but one that was by the builders for their advantage. So it isn't that it won't happen. It will happen eventually, but it will likely not be to the benefit of home ownership.
Councilmember Santos?
Well, and that's in one person's apparently already made up opinion. What I was going to say was I think when we asked for this topic to come back, I'm pretty much thinking everything's on the menu. Whether it's an ordinance or supporting Representative Singer or whoever else is coming forward, I believe that's all on the menu. This isn't saying do an ordinance, bring it back, we're going to put it on first reading. This is give us some more information, give us some options about what we can and cannot do, and then go from there. Whether council decides to do an ordinance or support a piece of legislation, that's to come. We're having discussions way before we should. Well, and that's an opinion, but apparently there are members of council who have made up their minds. The rest of us have not.
Okay,
Coombs, before you vote, could I just clarify that the amendment you made, was that accepted by council members?
Yes.
Okay, so we are only voting on one motion then.
And what is the motion?
The motion is to have staff work on the construction defect topic and bring it back for more discussion before drafting the ordinance.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
the
correct.
topic, right?
But you guys are making points way ahead of time. But it's up to you two.
Yeah.
I have a personal privilege.
Yeah, well, did we define a timeline? I mean, I think,
There's a timeline defined.
yeah, I don't think we did. And I don't think that there's a super rush, but I think we just want to be working in parallel with.
By March.
Okay, end of March, beginning of March? Okay,
That's fine, and then we'll also work with Sandy
okay.
in terms of what they're seeing in terms of the legislative calendar and what that looks like. And if we see something move sooner, we may have to move up
Okay.
the presentation. So that date works, just as long as we know that. Yeah.
Okay,
Just keep us posted. Make it.
Yep. We'll do that.
all right, let's vote. Okay, it passes 5-2 with Councilmember Christensen and Councilmember Peck dissenting. While we're still on council comments, I was at a retreat this weekend at the Metro's Mayor Caucus, and I was sitting next to Michael Hancock, and he asked me, well, what's some of the infrastructure things that we're working on? I told him, well, we're rolling out broadband to our whole city, and he said, well, what telecom are you partnering with? And I said, we're not partnering with any. And he says, well, how are you doing it then? I mean, he says, well, who's paying for it? Is it being paid for by tax dollars? I go, no, it's being paid for by subscribers. So he was just totally blown away that what Longmont's doing. So, I guess, Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. And to piggyback on Councilmember Christensen's comment about Nextlight, I also, those guys were out in the frigid cold around New Year's, putting in, New Year's Eve, putting in pipe and infrastructure around our neighborhood as well. So I was thankful to see that. Still kind of hoping, and I always call Tom Roniotis and give him a hard time, first of the year, we're in the first of the year. Looking forward to dropping Comcast and picking up Nextlight at $50 for a gig to my home. I would also mention that in email conversations, replying to all is probably not the best. If you want to have you have something you want to say to a member of staff, just reply to that member of staff. Thanks.
Councilmember Moore.
Well, I might as well pile on the next late thing. They're in their little huts on their little trailers, look at making the interconnects on the main pipe. So in our neighborhood, so they're sounds like they're working all over town, which is great, and can't wait to get it. Can't wait to dump CenturyLink. So, and I can't wait to go to Good Bird Chicken.
It is good. It is.
Is it good?
Good. Councilmember Begley.
Thank you, Mayor. One more thing. I commit when I win the Powerball next week, I bought a ticket, that I will still remain, you can put this in the paper, I promise and commit to serving on council still, even though I'm a billionaire. Just want to put that out there. And I'll each give you $20.
Thank you. All right, city manager, any additional remarks?
No, I guess while you all were talking about that, I would want to give a shout out to really all of our crews that have been working in this cold weather. Anything from snow removal to the water work that we're doing. Again, it's just a really amazing thing that we see our folks do on a daily basis. And so I wanted to just say we have a lot of great folks in this organization that when the weather conditions are at their worst, or the situation's at its worst, or we're trying to, you name it, our folks are out there, and they're tackling every problem and providing a great service to the community. So I just want to add that as well. So.
I forgot to mention that I thought that when I read that article in the paper about that police incident that was very volatile, where someone was shooting a gun out the window and, was basically trying to commit suicide by a cop. I just think our police force is just so well trained, and we just have to be so proud of that culture and how they handled that situation and put themselves in a really tough, stressful situation, and were able to respond appropriately without ending in some tragedy. So I'm really, really proud of our police department.
No more comments.
City manager, city attorney, any comments?
No comments, Mayor.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Discipline is noteworthy.